This story I got from Doc McConnell. He was a scoutmaster up at Rogersville, Tennessee, and he had an old-time medicine show he used to put on at the National Storytelling Festival. And I heard this about 50 years ago at the second annual Storytelling Festival in Jonesboro, Tennessee. It's held every first weekend in October in Jonesboro. They're still having them. And if any of you get a chance, it'll be a fun weekend for you. He said in the old, back years ago, there was a small community and a small church, and that had a preacher, and his name was Frye, Frye, and that was his last name. But everybody called him Old Dry Frye because his sermons were so dry. The people had to tote water into church because he talked so long and it just bored him to death. But anyway, he loved fried chicken. He just loved fried chicken. And every Sunday, after preaching, one of the members of the church would always ask him to Sunday dinner. And people don't do that now for preachers, and it was a good. People ought to do that again. But anyway, one day after church Sunday, one of the deacons had him over for dinner that day, and that's what we used to call, y'all call lunch down, but dinner was noon and supper was supper, or dinner, whatever, y'all. It messed up the language for us old folks. But anyway, Old Dry Frye, well, he was sitting at the table. He had a knife in one hand, a fork in the other. He was just smelling that chicken coming out of the kitchen, and his mouth was just watering. And yeah, come the lady of the house. She come out there and set that big platter of fried chicken on the table. And his sermons was long and boring, but let me tell you, his blessings when he had fried chicken were mighty short. He'd amen, and he'd stab a big piece of fried chicken with his fork and just put the whole blooming thing in his mouth and choke. And he just fell off over there on the floor. And the deacon walked around and said, "Oh my Lord." Said, "We done killed Old Dry Frye with our fried chicken." Said, "Don't want nobody to ever believe we didn't mean to do it." So what do we do? So he worried all day long. And late that night he thought, I got to get rid of the body. I'll be hung for murder for sure. So he took him over to his neighbor's house. Now he done got stiff. And he just leaned him up on the porch there behind the screen door. Next morning that fella walked up. He just put those galluses on his overalls. And he opened the door, swung the swing door around, and hit Old Dry Frye and knocked Dry Frye down on the porch floor. And he looked at it and said, "Oh my Lord, I done killed Dry Frye with my screen door. What'll I do?" He worried. So he hid the body, all day long. And late that night, he took him over to his neighbor's house and stood him up down there by the crib. By now he was really stiff. And so he went on back and went to bed. So that fella came out the next day, getting up in the morning, about chickens are crowing. He's time to get up and go to work. He looked out the door there and saw this fella leaning up against the corn crib. And he said, "I knew somebody had been stealing my corn." And I said, "Bet that's a rascal who's been stealing my corn." So he hollered out there, "Hey, you, get away from my corn crib." Of course, Old Dry Frye, he didn't say nothing. So he said, "If you don't get away, I'm going to shoot you with my shotgun." Dry Frye still didn't say. He didn't move. So he pulled that gun down off the top of the door, pulled the hammer back, and boom! And Old Dry Frye fell over. So he walked out there and kicked him over. He said, "Oh Lord, that's Dry Frye." Because everybody knew Old Dry Frye. He said, "I done killed Old Dry Frye with my shotgun." I said, "What'll I do?" So he worried a few days. Next Saturday night, he took him down by the creek and waited out there with a big old rock out there, and he propped him up on a rock, had his chin in his hand like that, and left him. Next morning, two little feisty boys were coming along there. they looked at that. Hey, Mr. Dry Fry, because everybody knew old Dry Fry, you know. And old Dry Fry didn't say nothing. So the little boy said, hi, Mr. Dry Fry. Dry Fry still didn't say nothing. He said, Mr. Dry Fry, if you don't speak to me, I'm going to chuck this rock at you. Old Dry Fry, he didn't say nothing. He picked up a rock, he swung it out there, hit old Dry Fry in the head, and off he down he went in the water. Glug, glug, glug. Well, it was Sunday again. And the boys heard somebody coming. The crowd was coming down the hill, and so they went and hid in the bushes. And it was a crowd from the church. It was baptizing Sunday. And so they was all supposed to meet there and have the baptized. Everybody said, where's old Dry Fry? And we can't have baptized without him. One fellow said, well, he had Sunday dinner with me last Sunday, and I hadn't seen him since. Neighbor said, well, he come by my house one day in the morning, and I hadn't seen him since. And the other fellow said, well, I saw him down by my crib one day, and I don't know where he is. And so they waited around a long time. They sang some hymns and all. Shall we gather at the river and all, like you do always did at the baptizing. And they said, I guess we can't have the baptism without Dry Fry. So they took up a collection, and like they always do at the Baptist church, you know, and they went on home. So the little boys said, and about that time, old Dry Fry floated up to the top level. We'll never this Dry Fry. So they went out way down, got him, and started dragging him along down the road there. And they got about the top of the hill, and they saw some heads coming up that way. And the people coming up that way saw them, and they all ran and hid in the bushes. Because the fellow coming up that way was hog thieves. And they done stole somebody's hog meat, and they had them in a tow sack, taking them home. Boys came out of the woods there, and they saw them sacks there, and they looked down, and they were full of hog meat. Them guys was hog thieves. They done stole this meat. So they had an idea. They got the hog meat out, and they stuffed old Dry Fry in one of them sacks. And they took the hog meat on home to their mamas. And, a little bit later, them men come out of the woods. They was looking, and didn't see nobody else. So they grabbed that sack and went on home, hung it up in the smokehouse out behind the house there, and went on to bed. Well, next morning, one of his wives got up, and she said, I'm gonna have a good breakfast. We're gonna have some country ham this morning. I made some good old biscuits, and we'll have scrambled eggs, and we'll have a big pile of grits, and we're going to have a good breakfast this morning. So she went out there and had her old butcher knife, and she set that sack up and opened it up, and she said, oh my goodness, that's old Dry Fry. Because everybody knew old Dry Fry. She said, oh Lord, went back running in the house, woke her up and said, y'all done killed old Dry Fry. Because everybody knew old Dry Fry. So they thought, Lord, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? We'll be hung for murder for sure. So late that night, they took him, and they got an old horse. They didn't like much anyway. Got an old raggedy saddle and put on him, and cinched it up on the bottom. And they put old Dry Fry up on top of him, and tied his legs together up on the horse's belly. Put an old flop hat on him. And in the next morning, they hit that horse on the butt, and he went romping off down the road, and old Dry Fry swinging side to side, side to side. And all the people sitting out on the porch that came by, he kept riding by. He said, there's old Dry Fry, because everybody knew old Dry Fry.